What's up, guys? How y'all doing? Today I'm going to be talking about communication. Communication. So, this is Proverbs 18:21. Some interesting numerology there, 18 is 666, 21 is 777. So it's like the evil and the good. It's all synchronistic, it all leads like, oh, it's lets me know I'm headed in the right direction. But anyway, Proverbs 18:21. The tongue has the power of life and death, and those who love it will eat its fruit. So, what does that mean? All right? What does that mean? In my opinion, this is about communication. So, I'm gonna start off simple. Let's say communication between two people, right? Okay. Let's say you got a little. This is you right here. All right. There's someone else that's not you. It could be anyone. It could be a family member. It could be someone out in public. It could be a coworker. Whatever. So inherently, before you even communicate with this person, there are generally already a few barriers in place in between you that prevent real communication. So, barrier, 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 here. And your communication has to be filtered through all these layers before it reaches the other person. So, what are these layers, these filters in communication between yourself and another? Well, first off is the person themselves, their ego. The person, like, their ego defines, most people's ego defines how they see other people because they compare themselves to that person, they compare that person to other people. So first you're gonna get, okay, they've seen you, or they hear your voice, they make assumptions right off the bat. So before you even a word leaves your mouth, you already have this filter set up. Let's take me for example. I'm a little overweight, I'm a redhead, I have facial hair. You could look at me and assume a couple of things, and that's okay. It's natural. It happens automatically. But you can learn to control it and then make a conscious choice, not let it influence your decisions, to let it not influence how you see other people. So, what's the second layer? Well, the second layer would be like culture. The first off is it like vanity versus vanity. The second, now I talked about this in my awareness video, part 1. The second is culture. So on a mind level, we're not talking spiritual just yet, but on a mind level, the person defines you based on how their culture has led them to define other people. So as you can see, I could keep going ad nauseum, with the examples of the minuscule barriers. But essentially, what I'm talking about here is that there is a gap. We could say this is a river. This is a river between you, this person, and you and this person that must be bridged in whatever way possible. And this bridge, we can say this is the bridge right here. The bridge of communication. It's built on an agreement that both of you will be civil with each other and that you will communicate in a way that is beneficial. Generally, if you're just having a regular pleasant conversation, But if one thing breaks down, if there's a misunderstanding, if one part of this bridge goes away, you're gonna fall into the water, and both of you are not gonna be able to understand each other. And I have the sense that when I speak to other people, the gap that I used to sense becomes wider and wider every day. You know, my subjective reality and another person's subjective reality is so far apart that, you know, before the river between us used to look like this. Now it looks like this, all the way apart, you know. And you got one rickety little bridge right down the middle. You know, you got one little bridge right down the middle like that. Well, like in the movies where you have that one tiny bridge in between two cliffs, you know, and all the characters are walking along the tiny rickety bridge, and they're trying to reach the other side, and something happens and the bridge falls and they fall down into the water. So what this is a symbolic representation of, in my opinion, is it represents, like, on the human level, on the person to person level, represents like you falling into the water is like you falling into illusion, you falling into, you know, misunderstanding, you falling into, you know, being led down a path that you hadn't intended to be led down, you know, you giving off a message that you hadn't intended to give, and the person alongside you doing the same, you know. So to get to the point here, what does this mean spiritual? So everyone knows, you know, we have a subjective reality from one person to the next that's completely different. And the bridge between two people is extremely small and extremely, you know, thin between two people for the most part. Now time and, you know, more communication and, you know, bonding can strengthen that bridge between two people, but there's, to a certain extent, you can never breach that person's, you know, bubble. You know, you can get right up close to the bubble that they're in. You can press your face into it and press your hands into it. Get real close and look right at them in their eyes, and, you know, but you can't pierce the bubble. However, what you can do is you can pierce, like, the bubble on a larger scale. And on an individual scale, you know, if done correctly. And an example I want to use for this, okay, is a love letter. So, you know, in all the old movies and old stories that talk about people used to send letters back and forth to each other. Not so much these days, but, you know, not too much love letters going around, you know. But back in the day, in order to, you know, sway a partner, you would send a love letter. And you would have all these descriptive, you know, artistic examples of poetry and admiration of the person, and talking about all the details and all the delicacies of how they look, how they smell, you know what I mean, how wonderful and beautiful and gorgeous they are, and just really getting to the minutia and using really deep symbolic representations and comparing the person to things out in nature, comparing the person to, you know, fine works of art, comparing the person to architecture, and finding all these different ways to summarize their feelings about the other person through using symbolic imagery, you know, through the word. And that's art. And so, what is the point of that art? You know, what is the point of that? Well, why did that person do that? Well, they're in love, you know. Call that whatever you want to call it, but we'll just say it's love. You know, the person wants to woo. They want to mate the other person. You know, they're trying to get them to like them. They want them to know that they, you know, how much they like them, but it's kind of subconsciously known that you can't just say that to someone and make them understand. You know, actions speak louder than words, obviously, but even that doesn't really help. Like, that'll show through your actions how far you're willing to go, and, you know, through certain moments and certain things that are done, it can be poetic, it can be artistic, most certainly, But stuff like buying things and, you know, things of a sexual nature, things like that really tend to still not bridge that gap, you know. Now, sexuality does bridge that gap, but in a different way. That's in a way where you're communicating, you know, on a deeper, like, subconscious level. You know, it's like the animal and the spirit is involved at the same time, depending on the angle that the relationship was cued in. You know, whether you're married or with this person or that person. So, what I'm getting at is the love letter is like something that's specifically designed with a message within it, and then symbolic artistry is used to craft something that would pierce the other person's subjective bubble to get them to understand at least one single concept that you have held in your head well enough for them to be convinced of it. And there's so much effort goes into just that one concept just to get that message across. So you must think, and with people in your life, you know, use that example, like when you say things to them, and when you talk to other people, how much is lost in translation? You know, we certainly don't write a love letter every time that we would like to say something to someone else. You know, I say we should use more artistic language and more artistic expression, but that's just me. I feel like it would help. But anyway, yeah. So people spend hours and hours and hours writing something like that just to get across a message. A single message. And a simple one at that. You know, I like you. I think you're beautiful. You know, I love you. That's the message. And it's so simple, but yet it's still just to get someone to understand the breadth of it, even someone you're close with, it takes a lot of effort. So imagine how much effort it would take to get an idea like, let's say, a spiritual experience, okay? Let's say I experienced something spiritually, all right? So let's say I saw something spiritual happen, okay? And this experience shaped who I was from that point on. It completely changed my reality. And you're thinking to yourself, how can I convey this message to someone else? Okay? How can I take this information that I've gotten, this spiritual information, this spiritual experience, and its imprint on my mental memory at least, and translate that into a small enough package that's compact enough, but descriptive enough to breach someone else's subjective perceptual bubble so that they can understand that spiritual experience for themselves. Right? How do you do that? And art is the way that you do that. Like the love letter, you know? Essentially, when I'm making a video, like especially the artsy videos with the music and the poetry and everything, I'm trying to craft essentially a quote-unquote love letter. You know, I'm trying to craft a symbolic piece of art through my descriptive words and symbolic representations to pierce your perceptual bubble, to get you to understand something that I cannot flat out say and have you actually understand it, you know? Like you can say, oh, yeah, I know what God is. And the person next to you be like, yeah, I believe in God too. And then the person next to him will be like, yeah, I believe in God too. And they all agree that they believe in God. But each person's idea of what God is completely different from the person sitting next to them. Especially on that kind of subject. I guarantee you, in most cases, there's a vast ocean of difference between one person's subjective understanding of God to another's. So, okay. Art is the way to pierce the, you know, symbolic perceptual bubble between one person to another. So I would take this spiritual experience and take at least a piece of it, like a small piece of that spiritual information, and pack it up in this artistic representation, this artistic expression, and use that to communicate, you know, to people on a wider scale what I witnessed and try to convey the information to them. To what benefit? Why would I do that? That's a complicated question. Um, I may answer that near the end of the video, but for now, okay. So I crafted this quote-unquote love letter, this artistic expression, in order to pierce another person's perceptual bubble, okay, and it has to still go through all these layers, right? It still has to go through all these layers before it reaches them. Especially on like YouTube, okay? On YouTube, it's to such a wide audience that you really don't know who's watching. You're not trying to tailor it to any person in particular. You're just trying to get it out there to where the most amount of people can understand the most. That's basically what you're trying to do. And so you want to make something that's extremely piercing and extremely direct and kind of a little confrontational. That's what you want to do. And confrontational, not in a conscious sense. Like, you don't have to say something controversial, because in fact that controversial statement, in all truthfulness, in all honesty, that will set up the barriers even more. That'll have that person consciously on the defensive, so that their perceptual barrier is stronger than it would usually be from the beginning, because you're activating their like mental defense mechanism. You're making them consciously stand up and say, oh wait, hold on a second, I don't agree with that. And then from then on out, it's just an uphill battle that you usually can't win. So where does the battle take place in that sense? The battle for the minds and the hearts and the souls of men. The battle for the minds and the hearts and the souls of men takes place in the subconscious. Through what I'm trying to do, what I believe I'm trying to do, to transfer spiritual information into the material plane to other people as best as I can. I call that art. That's what I would call it. Call it as you wish, but that's my word for it. Using information, symbolism, images, music, and the spoken word together to elicit a subconscious spiritual response, the subconscious spiritual, receiving of information. Even if the person doesn't understand it consciously, I'm okay with that. As long as it goes to their subconscious and it elevates them on that level, because everything from the subconscious is what creates the conscious mind. And while they may not understand the difference in their lives that was made by that subconscious, receiving of information, it will have made the difference anyway. So you'll never get the credit for that. Like, no one's ever gonna say, oh Zach, wow, like, we love your art videos, they're so awesome. Like, the only videos I've really gotten attention for were like the simple stuff, like that salvia trip report that I made, or stuff like that, stuff that's easier to understand, because people on a conscious level can nod their heads and go, yeah, I understand that. And I'm not saying I'm some sort of Picasso or something, hardly, but what I am saying is that if they consciously enjoyed the video, like really enjoyed it, there was a part that they could latch onto consciously. Now, the best art like has a little bit of both. Like, it should rise up enough to the top to where you can also enjoy it consciously, even if you don't understand why. I'm working on that, Like Ben from vat_city, he's real good at that. That's the person that I've followed since the beginning. He kind of started me on this journey. So I try to model a lot of my stuff off of his, just to begin with. I'm branching out on my own path now, but just to begin with, I kind of followed his formula, And so what the message here is that if you want to breach someone's subconscious mind, you have to use more than just your regular conversational skills. There has to be a lot of things included in it, like in reference to the love, like the whole love example. When you come up to someone you love, you know, your family member, your wife, you may touch them. You give them eye contact. You change your posture in a certain way to see more like, you know, you're becoming more comfortable, and they see that you're becoming more comfortable. Like you ease your stance. All these things come together. All the body language, the tone of voice, the physical contact, all of it comes together to form this sort of art, you know, to form this sort of level of communication that goes beyond the conscious mind. Say, I feel comfortable around you and I love you. And just the words aren't really important. The words are just acknowledging the rest of it, you know. The words without the rest of it really don't mean anything. You know, the word is just the label slapped on top of all the other pieces, you know. And so in the same way of art, the title and the written word is just the label that I put on the rest of it to try and, you know, lead you in a certain direction that I was trying to make a point, you know, in the spiritual sense. But I'm not hoping for like a certain outcome, but I just trying to have you catch the drift of it, you know, as best you can, so that you can take it from there on your own way. So that's art. That's, you know, trying to influence people subconsciously on the good aspect without trying to force them to do anything, without trying to really change them, but just trying to give them information, you know. That's all it is. Information transfer in the spiritual sense. What is the opposite of that then? Okay? Because people with ill intentions must understand the same concept. Oh, and they do. That's called black magic. Okay, all through my life I heard of magic, black magic, witchcraft, you know, this, that, and the other one, and I never understood what it meant, you know. I never really understood what it meant. I was like, what do they do? How do they make it work? What is magic? What is the secret? You know, why do all these people do this? Why all these people follow it? And the first thing I realized was that the majority of people that follow these things don't understand it either. You know, they just kind of spit out words and pseudonyms and stuff, and like put these symbols on their t-shirts and tattoos and everything they don't really understand. And what you're doing when you do that, and see, that's the essence of black magic. Okay, there's all these people that take these symbols and then subconsciously associate certain things with those symbols, and then your subconscious understands what those symbols mean, but your conscious doesn't. And so when you wear those symbols and you think about those symbols and you look at those symbols all the time, you're allowing that person's will and intention behind the symbol to be manifest through your awareness. You know, that's black magic. Black magic is taking someone else's awareness and directing it towards your own objective, like stealing their awareness, you know? Like it talks about like warlocks and stuff, how they steal your soul. You know, it's like stealing your soul, stealing your awareness. They use their own like preformed and prefabricated subconscious like subliminal symbols that they've laid on everyone, and then they use that and then direct your awareness through those symbols and through that whole thing to their intention. Because your conscious mind might not understand it, but your subconscious does. You know, your subconscious does understand it. That's black magic. Black magic is, it's very simple. It's not complicated, you know. It's complicated when you get into the house and the whys and all that. But as far as like actually what black magic is, to me, black magic is simply the manipulation of the subconscious mind for a material end goal. That's all. That's all it is. Like, the subconscious mind is very susceptible to like small changes in the environment around you personally. So like when you see like witches and stuff like that, when they do witchcraft, you see they'll take like a piece of the person's hair, and they'll take like this and that and this and that, like pieces of that other person's like personal belongings, and they'll put it on a little voodoo doll, and they'll set up a little thing and they'll burn the voodoo doll. It's like At some level, they understand that their awareness is what manifests reality, and that's how things really get done in the world, is through your awareness manifesting the reality around you. And so, in order to train your subconscious mind and your will to have and achieve a certain outcome in the external environment, they use those symbols and those little pieces of, paraphernalia from the other person that they want to harm, and they take that paraphernalia and form a more potent symbol of them, because the more actual pieces of themselves, the other person that they get, and the more things that they believe will work. That's the important part. The more things that the witch believes will work makes it more potent to the witch herself or himself, The more things that you can grab that you truly, your subconscious and your will truly actually believes will be successful in whatever you're trying to do, whatever ritual, then it will be more likely to work, or more likely to have the exact desired effect. And so, in that way, you can extrapolate that your physical actions in reality are not the reason why that something happens. You don't pick up a hammer and smash a nail down because you picked up the hammer and smashed a nail down in reality. There's no such thing. There's no spoon, There's no hammer. There's no nail there. It's all in your head. But what it is that you believe when you pick up the hammer, like your intention to pick up the hammer and nail the nail in, your intention behind it is such a simple action that you have complete and total unwavering belief that that action, like you doing that, will complete that action. Never in any universe would most people think that if they picked up that hammer and then slammed it down on the nail, that the nail would burst forth into a cloud of smoke and then turn into a small goblin that would rob your wallet. Like, no, stuff like that. No one would think that. There are people out there who are like that, and I'm completely okay with that. I'm kind of one of those types of people. But the common experience and awareness is like, okay, you've been trained to think that when you do something, something will happen. And the totality of your belief in that understanding is the manifest effect of that belief on the environment. Stronger and more ingrained the belief, the stronger and more ingrained the effect. That is why it is so important to fight for people's attention and to fight for people's awareness and will, because that is power in this place, in this world. And like the fight for your own will, the fight for your own attention. Like, you as a person, your body and your mind are not who you are. You're a spirit. You're like an observer looking through the perspective of the eyeballs of your body, but that's not like, none of that is actually you, So you can make the decision to have all of this, this conscious input, and choose to say, no, I'm not going to do that. You can make that decision if you understand the fact that, you are just the observer of your own self. Who you really are is incomprehensible to us at this point. It's not capable of understanding in a way that I can communicate in language. It's like that. I have to create some kind of art piece in order to communicate that fact, or try to, which I have done, and I will continue trying to do. So, if you understand that fact, that alone kind of it breaks the electrical conduit. How do I put this? Okay, so there's a flow of electricity from a loop, it's like a vicious cycle where you believe that you are your body and your mind, therefore you are your body and your mind, therefore you believe you are your body and your mind, therefore you are your body and your mind. It's like sick. It's like circular logic. It reinforces itself over time. It becomes so ingrained that you wake up one day and here you are, right? You're living in a body. You gotta eat, sleep, all this other crap. Go to work, because you believe that that's the way things are. Now, I'm not saying that you can just magically break out of this and start like grow wings and start flying through the air. I'm not saying you can't though. Maybe you could. Don't let me tell you. You know what I mean? I think all that stuff is entirely possible. It's just you have to get away from the center of awareness, like the center consensus. You have to get as far away from it as you possibly can in order to make that happen. That's the only thing. So the more you can understand that you're just the observer of the things that happen in your life, and the more you think about it, the more ingrained that belief will become. And just that central belief, since it encompasses your entire perceptive reality here, it can allow you to uproot all the rest of it with just that one belief. And as a Christian, just me personally, God teaches us that we have a soul and a spirit, and we have a place outside of this. And so just by placing that, by reading the Bible and understanding it places in my subconscious the idea that I have the freedom and the capacity to be a lot more powerful and creative than I have been told. So over time, if I continue reading the Bible, and I continue making art, and I continue speaking to people, I continue doing these things, that eventually I can slowly break free from the paradigm that I'm in over time. I can slowly break free from the life that I've been set in to believe, and I can start to achieve more and more things that I previously thought were impossible. Start to become more powerful, like Neo in the Matrix. Like you're starting to believe. When you start to believe the fact that you really can have more of an effect on your environment, you will have more of an effect on your environment. But it's a curse and it's a blessing at the same time. The curse and a blessing at the same time. Because once you become fully uprooted to some degree, and what you say and think and do really does reflect in the outside environment, you have a responsibility at that point to yourself and the people around you to make that environment what you actually want it to be to the best of your ability. You want to go up. You want to do good things, not bad things. You want to have good thoughts, not bad thoughts. Because those bad thoughts, once you've uprooted your belief in the fact that you are this material person and you're actually like a soul that manifests the environment, once you have bad thoughts, then the bad thoughts are going to immediately manifest and make things bad. As soon as you sin at that point, the sin will be reflected, immediately. Since you have that power. And the more and more power you gain, the more and more responsibility you have to yourself and the people around you. At least keep things copacetic, You can't be flying off the handle all the time. You can't be mean to people. You can't be evil, because then everything will be evil around you. Does that make sense? Because it's like that. The connection from your subconscious to the conscious mind, and then subsequently to the outside environment, starts to become faster and faster and faster and faster the more you uproot yourself from the common narrative. So once you totally uproot yourself from the common narrative and you have a quick pass, quick track, from your subconscious to your conscious mind, you can access that information. And to be very careful how you approach other people, and especially approach yourself. You have to think about not having negative thoughts about yourself, not having negative thoughts about other people, believing in yourself. That's when being a good person can really make a difference. That's when being a good person becomes not just something that you do to make yourself feel better at night, but something that you do that will literally create a difference in the environment. And so that's why, as a Christian, I do my best. I'm not perfect at all, not even a little bit. but I do try my best to be a decent person, you know. And I feel like I'm getting better every day to some degree. I take back steps sometimes, sometimes I don't. But here's the good news. Even if you even if you haven't reached that level of awareness and that kind of understanding and the belief that you have that power, if you start being a good person right now, even when you don't believe, you can see that effect regardless. If you start being a good person, so no matter what level of awareness that you're at, if you start being a good person, you can make a difference. You know, it doesn't matter. And with the bad stuff, being a bad person has less of an effect on a lower level of awareness because, like, you don't have as much power to influence other people when you don't understand how to. But being a good person, since it's such a natural thing for people, you know, it's a natural thing to try and do good, um, it can make a difference right away. So, I guess if I were to end off the video with something, try your best to be a good person and you will see results eventually. The world will give you feedback. The world will not like the fact that you're trying to be a good person. The world hates good people to some degree. But don't let that discourage you. If anybody, you can know that Zach, okay, me, I'm thinking about it and I believe in you and I appreciate the fact that you're doing your best to be a good person. So with that, that's the end of the video, guys. Just something simple. Figure I'd just do some talking. People seem to like that. So yeah, thank you so much. I hope y'all have a wonderful evening, and I'll see you soon. Have some music coming out soon. Watch out for that. Okay. All right. Thank you so much. Have a good night.